I had a thought this morning just to share that some of you know that I'm working with an Afghan family, and all the agencies that are working with the Afghans are taking care of all the practical details, their housing and their food and medical, and sort of don't have the space to do what we do, which is making space for their emotional well-being. And so I'm sort of working on a project with the University of Massachusetts to see if we could do something like that, a pilot project. And our first step was just, we invited a few Afghans to a meeting and just sort of asked them, how are they? Which I don't think anybody's done after they've been here for 3 months. And it was really informative. And afterward, I wrote to my family who I'm working with, and I asked him, I said, how are you after this meeting? And he wrote to me something like this. He wrote to me, I'm a little bloody liver. And I asked Pat, my colleague, because she knows the language, what was he trying to say? And she said that he's super sad because he's thinking of his family, and that bloody liver is deeper grief than the heart. So it just shows how there's always so much more. Sometimes we think we understand someone, and sometimes we know we don't understand, but there's always so much more. Maybe just taking time and listening to someone, as we know, makes a huge difference. So that just came to me this morning, that I wanted to share that. Welcome.
And I want to welcome you to the Helpers meeting for the new year. And we're very excited to start. We've been together now a year and a half, and we're starting, this will be our, well, I guess it will be our second new year that we're starting together. And we've had some wonderful suggestions from all of you about sending out at the beginning of the month what we're planning for the month, so that you can plan ahead, and we're planning to do that. And have some of our meetings that will be less prepared, less formal, and focusing on something altogether. So we'll have some meetings like that will be more like community meetings without prepared reflection, but somebody doing an attunement and holding the space for us. So we're looking forward to that also. So today we are having a continuation of our Celebrate Jean birthday party, because there was so much last Monday that we felt like it was a shame to sort of cut it off, and people wanted more of that. We had planned to have a New Year's experience together, but we're having sort of a Celebrate Jean New Year's experience together today. And so we want to invite people to share comments and stories and thoughts about Jean and about his work and about what that work means to you. And I wanted to us to focus on a quote that Vivian picked out. And Vivian gave this beautiful gift to the Chinese students of translating some of the stories from the Celebrate Jean party last time. Vivian, could you tell them a little bit about that? And we sent you a quote, and we'll focus on that quote this morning too.
Actually, I don't know what to say. I was just so moved last week, and I feel it's not a bad idea to share the stories with Chinese students here. So I wrote, and it's very well received. I checked the records already read by some like 350 people already.
Wow.
And many gave me very positive feedback, and they want more, something like this. So yeah, that's what I'm also looking for by joining the gathering every week.
Wonderful, Vivian. Well, we're so happy to have you for as a part of this group, and also as a sort of liaison with the Chinese students. Okay, I think we can come back together without the screen. I always miss seeing people when we're sharing the screen. So how about if we begin by just taking a breath together and bringing in the new year, sort of bringing in the new year with Jean in a way, bringing in the new year. And we're gathering around this experience of celebrating Jean's life and work together, and sort of helping, allowing Jean to help us to start this year and see what it means to start this year with his philosophy and his support. I wonder if somebody would want to, other than me, would want to just do like a little 1 minute settling kind of attunement for us to begin. Would somebody like to do that?
So maybe just allowing your eyes to close, if that would feel okay. If not, that's okay too. And just starting with a few nice, full, deep breaths. Like really allowing yourself to inhale deeply and to exhale completely. And then maybe just noticing how your body is feeling in this moment. Maybe noticing the parts that are in contact with what you're sitting on. Noticing your hands and your feet, like what they're touching, how they feel. And just remembering that for this practice, there's no right or wrong. We're just noticing. And then very gently shifting your awareness to the inside, into that whole middle part of your being. Your throat, your chest, your stomach and abdomen. And you might want to see if it would feel okay just to notice what comes inside when you think of Jean. Jenlin might be somebody that you've met, that have had significant contact with, or maybe somebody you've only heard about. But still, just notice what comes. And again, there's no right or wrong. We just want to notice. And when you're aware of something, might make no sense at all, but you maybe could just acknowledge that. Like, oh, that's what's coming.
В процессе, поэтому я да, мешок попался.
And then I'll just ask one more question before we close this for now. But maybe noticing if Jean were here, maybe if there's one thing you might like to ask him or say to him. Like giving yourself permission just to notice what you might like to communicate, if that were possible. And then maybe just for now, taking a moment to send some compassion inside, because that's something that Jean had no shortage of and would have loved for us to be able to give it to ourselves as well. And then maybe just gently saying goodbye inside for now. And when you're ready, just allowing your awareness to come back by noticing your breath. And when you're ready, allowing your eyes to open so you could join our virtual space.
Thank you so much, Ruth.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful having that coming from you from Jerusalem. So I'd like to see just what comes, whatever is there for you. A story about Jean or your relationship with his work, or a question or a thought, whatever is there for you.
Well, I can jump in and just start with a real quickie.
Good, great.
So I would love to be able to really let Jean know how much this work has changed my life. And it's hard to say this without tears coming, but I'm going to try. This whole idea of being good to myself and letting there be space inside is something that was just it's so radically different than what I could do before. People would say you need to be good to yourself, but we don't know how to do that. And focusing taught me what that means from the inside. So I would love him to know just how deeply I appreciate this work. And the more I study it, the more I appreciate it.
Yes. I really want to echo that I've been teaching Jean's work. I started teaching it almost from the very beginning when I met Jean. I wanted to share it right away, and that's a long time ago, 40 years or something. And it never gets old or stale or, other things that I've taught for a long time. It's like, oh, well, that's old hat. But there's always something new with this work. It's always an edge for me. It's always a new horizon, a sort of new adventure. And when I teach it, of course, I learn something new every time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a lifetime for me of the experience of being inspired and challenged and guided by Jean and by this work, and now going more deeply into his philosophy is a whole new adventure. But that is quite an amazing thing to have a lifetime of that.
Can I share now?
Yeah, please. Just jump in.
I wanted to share something, and then I took a step back, and I got remembered in Gene's article, when he starts by saying that we just need to stay, to be with another person, not to be smart or intelligent or grown up or
Yes.
something, just to sit with him and let the other one look into our eyes and see that we're just fragile human.
Yes.
And I don't know, I want to share another thing, but I wanted to share it quickly, if it's possible. That I watched again with the Matrix, the movie The Matrix, and to see how the main character takes a step back from the patterns of what is possible, like the main character is taking a step back from the infrastructure of the world as everyone sees it, the reality as everyone sees it, and I feel this what focusing allows me to see, take a step back from the reality as someone as I perceive it, or as my perception, or the common perception. That's it. That's my share.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, to see the world in a completely new way. Yes. And when you were sharing that quote, I was thinking it would be so wonderful if all of you would send us the quotes from Jean that are most meaningful to you, and we could assemble them. And Ruth is nodding. We would just love that. There are, the Focusing Institute has some cards of Jean's quotes that are very fun to have. But I would like to see what quotes you would pick. So please think about that. Just send them to Melinda and I, and Christine will assemble them for us.
Can I share?
Please.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. And Lynn, when you started at the very beginning, when you said, let us allow Jean to guide us in this year, I all of a sudden, a wave of gratitude swept throughout my whole body. And this, what Nathaniel, I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly, what you were saying just now, of seeing things in a different way, and living and experiencing things in such a different way. This is my gratitude to Jean and to all of you. I mentioned this last time, and all of you who followed on his footsteps and who have been bringing his work forward. This living, for me, it's this living from a deeper inner place, and it's so different. And there's an emotion coming for me now with all this gratitude, because it has been life-changing for me. I haven't known focusing for a long time. I got to know focusing like 5 years ago when I was studying counseling, and Barbara McGavin and Ann Weiser came to Argentina, and I was asked to translate for them at the time. That's how I got to know about focusing. And from that moment on, I was passionate about it. So I became a focusing trainer and a focusing oriented psychotherapist. And I'm now a coordinator in training. And I have been passionate about reading his philosophy. And this is why I'm so grateful, because it has changed not only my life, but my clients' life too.
Yes.
And today, I just want to share this with you all. Today, I'm starting another focusing oriented group in Spanish, and wanting to spread the word. So I've also offered different, if people cannot pay, to come also, and because I really feel that this has to be known and spread more and more. So thank you for this opportunity, and I thank Jean. If I could be with him, as Ruth was guiding us to think, I think I would just want to listen to him. I don't know if I had something special to ask him. I would just tell him, oh, come on, go on talking, and I'd just listen.
Thank you so much. Maybe you could put your group in the chat, because there are many people who would love to have a focusing group in Spanish. That's so exciting.
Oh, it is in Tiffy's website. I've put it on there. Yes, I will put it in the chat also.
Very
Yes.
good. You know, if you were with Jean and you wanted to just listen to him, you might have trouble, because he would want to listen to you. Look at you and say, well, what do you have there? Why do you want to listen to me? And he would look at you in that intense way. And you would find yourself talking, and respond, and he would respond to you very wholeheartedly and thoughtfully, and then you would get to listen.
That would be lovely. Well, in a way, it's like this here with all of you.
Yes, right.
Yeah, that gets me to think of something. There's that which you brought. Then, like, I've never met Jean, but there's that like humble care. Like I was like, wow, like that's so Jean. When I forget the name of the rabbi on the last Goldie. And Gene never even mentioned his background or his work or anything. He was just this anonymous Joe.
Yeah.
And then just had like a by the way. And it's not this like there's one way that someone might do that as a theatrical like hiding kind of thing. But Gene, like what I got from that, like didn't want to like bring all that to this space so a freshness could come in a new kind of looking, and like him not blathering away was because he was genuinely curious about you, not because he like what I might do is like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to ask questions to this other person. But no, he doesn't do that. It's from this curious type of place, not necessarily just like this is this better. I don't know. I'm actually kind of quite curious how other people would actually say this that knew him better, like in the same way in the first birthday party. I think it was Rob. No, it was someone else. Like someone was like, I got this sense about how focusing and the philosophy of the implicit is related to EMDR. Maybe I'll write like a whole thing about that. And Gene was like, no, like the EMDR people have their own process. It's their own thing. Like like don't mess with that. So there's this kind of like wise kind of humbleness that isn't just this holding back something. There's like actually a different kind of wonderment that I know is different, but I don't quite know what that is and would like to be able to see from that place or something. But that's more of that other thing that I have in me. Anyway, yeah, so that's what comes as an appreciation.
Thank you, Jonathan. I I have the feeling visiting Gene with all of you, and I would arrive and walk into his house. He wouldn't get up. This was when he was toward the end of his life, and he would be sitting on in his comfortable chair, surrounded by papers. I mean, there'd be piles of papers everywhere, and then his computer, and then more piles of papers, and then off to the side there would be a table with an electric teapot, and he would say, "Hi, hi, hello, hello," as he always said, and make yourself some tea. And I would often bring food, and he would be so happy to receive the food from Russ and Daughters, a Jewish appetizing store that he just absolutely loved. And then I would sit down and he would say, "Well, what do you have there today?" And I would often have some kind of question about relationality and psychotherapy, whatever it was, or some paper. And then we would just, the conversation would just unfold, and it was always very mutual and very natural. And it would be personal and theoretical at the same time, and focusing and discussing at the same time. So I wanted to give you all a feeling for that visit.
And I guess I have to say, because I sort of had a different kind of relationship with Gene, because I was working with him and his wife. And when they hired me, there was just a bunch of boxes in the garage, and sort of I had to sort of try to help create the Institute. But Gene always saw more in a person, and certainly saw more in me. So when, he would say to me, "Melinda, we got to get focusing out there. We got to get it in structures and stuff." It's not like he gave me a recipe, like, you go do A, B, and C. He just sort of had this big idea and just sort of threw it at me to try to figure it out. So when he knew that I was going to create this other organization to do just that, he was so excited, and he didn't feel like we were competing with the Institute. We were taking focusing in a different direction, and reaching people that wouldn't normally be able to afford focusing or whatever. But I think he just saw, he made space for the whole person. And it made all of a sudden the impossible possible.
Hi, this is Sophie. Good morning, everyone.
Sophie.
Happy New Year. One of the many things that I found extraordinary, but one of them comes back to me often, is the way I remember a few talks I listened to in some conferences, and the way he would, or at least the way I perceive, he would allow his creation to be taken further and not be so attached to, this is my creation, it needs to keep my name, and it needs to be this way. And if it's not this way, it cannot be called focusing, which is often what happens when some theory gets created. There is a clinging to it. He was really like, take it further. And I could feel he wants that. And I think this is what's happening. This is why it's living beyond, and how we keep creating from what we receive. That I haven't find many people who are able to do that there.
That's right, Sophie. And I was thinking also when Melinda was talking about Jean saying we have to get focusing out there, there was always the sense of the we. He would say, you know, postmodernism is really missing a bottom. You know, there's nothing at the bottom. We have to do something about that. And there was something so wonderful about the we have to do this. And just assuming that everybody has their talent and ability and job in doing the big things that need to be done, that we all do it. And we have that spirit in this group very much. We all do it together.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask, is that like a large influence from him, Lynn, or was that something, because you always have that like, oh, Jonathan, why don't you go do something? I'm curious how much of that is in interaction with him or something that you had before.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know, since I really met Gene at the beginning of my career, and he has been such a large influence all through it. I don't know what, I know some of the things that I disagreed with Gene, that those are my things and those are his things, but other things I don't know whether I got it from Gene or not. I
It
think
looks like David wants to say something about that, right?
Yeah, in 1970, I met up with Gene and Mary Hendricks in Chicago when it all started. And that's the basis of my training. And it was through changes, health changes. And Kathy McGuire wrote a very extensive book about changes and the origins of it. I would suggest anyone to read that. The other thing is that in the memorial to Mary Hendricks, she makes a lovely statement about that focusing is not anybody's. It's not Jane's. It's not hers. It's not the Institute's. It's within us, and it's there, and it's for us to access. And for me, I find it diabolical that that money often can get in the way of people learning focusing, and I don't think it should. But then people want to make money. So, but I purposely teach it free here in Sheffield as a memorial to Gene, and I've been doing that for years.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I've been able to afford that. Okay, because I'm 78. I'm retired, not retired, but I'm 78, and I don't. I'm not a. I don't. My family is on their way, and they're doing wonderful things. My two sons, but that's what it is. It's nobody's. It's everybody's, and we may feel that if we can, in the best way we can. But that's what gets in the way. What Freud might say, our various egos get in the way of us moving forward with another person. The most memorable thing I had, just to finish, is that we're meant to be here with another. It's embodied in us. And that's what I'll always remember when Gene said that in one of the sessions when he was teaching us focusing. We're meant to be with another. And that's what's in us. It's part of who we are.
Thank you
I
so
like
much.
that. Thank you. Yeah.
Can you just give them a sentence or something about, give us a sentence or something about what the changes meetings were like?
Yeah, well, I came to it out of a personal crisis. I just split up with a woman, and I just come back from Peace Corps, and I was And I came in, and here's a group of anywhere between 10 and 50 people would come to the Blue Gargoyle a church in the south side of Chicago, in the University of Chicago campus. They had an outreach program called Blue Gargoyle. We meet on a Sunday evening for a few hours. G would stand up in front of anybody and start teaching focusing to the whole group. And he would focus himself into the whole group of however many there were there. And then we'd split off into smaller groups, learning, listening, and focusing. Eventually, as it went on, other things were brought into the smaller groups, like reevaluation counseling and so on. That's people start teaching that as well.
Thank you.
And we found a part, and we would, but what was really critical, it was the political process. When we were speaking in the group, we had to own what we had to say. We didn't blame another. We always had to own our feelings. And that was critical. And that diffuses any situation. I'm a teacher trainer. And one of the things I tell training teachers, don't, try and blame somebody else or your students for what you can't do.
Yes, that idea of just making I statements and we statements, especially in political discussions, is so profound and so difficult for us
So it's
humans.
awful now. It's awful here now in England. Oh God, it's just absolute chaos with the pandemic. It was such an incompetent government, but they keep saying how wonderful they are.
Yes. When I went to the changes meetings in New York, I was amazed at this process and the democracy of it, and that would start with people who, anyone who had a need would say their need. It could be, I need a car, I need money to help pay the rent, I need to understand what phenomenology is, any kind of need. And then people would say what they had to offer. So the group would sort of match the people's needs with things that people had to offer. And then Jean, of course, would teach focusing and have people in partnerships and making all of these liaisons.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate to come across Ian, Mary, and I taught, and when I came to London, I then started teaching focusing. Barbara McGavin Evans was one of my first focusing groups where I taught focusing, and I'm so pleased where she's gone with, that, and
Right.
Ann Weiser, Jim Iberg, Linda Olson. These were the people, the founding people of Jean's, focusing.
Right. Thank you.
Just to follow up with you, David, there's 2 questions in the chat for you.
Yeah,
That you can put into the chat.
Yeah, I put my email address in the chat. So anybody can contact me through there, david@solar-active.com. I'm also happy to send you the link to the memorial to Mary Hendricks.
Oh, wonderful. Maybe you can send that to all of us.
Yeah, I can send it to all of you. I'll see if I can find a link now and put it in the chat. It's a great statement, I'll go look for it now.
Anybody else? I mean, you don't need to have a history with Jean to speak about whatever comes to you.
Can I say something?
Please, yes.
Came to me. I feel like to say something for the felt sense. Jean discovered that I feel it's like, you know, he was noticing the minority in elemental activities. And felt sense is like, you know, the most silent one there. And Jean was able to find it and share with all of us. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yes, the felt sense is a key to so much of sort of entering into this larger reality that we all have in our organismic beings. Maybe I'll tell one more story about Jean, and then we'll look at this quote, Vivian, that you gave us, and maybe we'll in our breakout rooms we'll focus on what the quote means. But I wanted to share a moment that sort of sticks out in my mind since we've been talking in the last group and this one about what spirituality, Jean's connection to spirituality. And I remember one evening when I arrived at his house and he was deep in thought, and I asked him, you know, what he was thinking about, and he said, he sort of looked at me like the way a child would, very kind of full of wonder. And he said, you know, I know that the universe is limitless, and that that whatever we think of as God is this big, 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 amazing interconnectedness. I don't know if that was his word, but this big, big thing. But I know that God isn't a being, he said. But when I think that God isn't a being, the child in me feels alone. And so I have to let the child think of God as a being, even though I know that God isn't limited to a being. And I was very struck by that, because I think that there was such profound wisdom in that we as humans, to relate, have to personify what we're relating to, and we personify God. But then the notion of God can be limited to this thing. God is a person. God is a being up in the sky or something. And it's navigating that limitlessness and the one in there who needs to relate to a being as the universe, as we need to relate to everything as a being. So I don't know if that is meaningful to you, but it sort of said so much to me about our human struggle, and the need to allow ourselves to personify, but then to always have that next step of deconstructing our personifications, knowing that the universe is always more, that everything is always more complex and larger. So maybe with that story, we'll take a look again at the quote Vivian picked, and then we'll go into our breakout rooms of 3 and share, and then we'll come back at 9:30 and share further. Would somebody read this out loud?
I don't
Can read
mind.
it.
Good.
Okay, so your physically felt body is in fact part of a gigantic system of here and other places. now and other times, you and other people, in fact, the whole universe.
And somebody else was going to read it too. Can
Yes.
you started to? Yes. Would you read it again? Because we need to hear it twice.
Your physically felt body is in fact part of a gigantic system of here and other places, now and other times, you and other people. In fact, the whole universe.
Thank you. Thank you.
What came for me, and I imagine for my other breakout participants, there's a whole sense of richness that we discovered into in our interaction. There's so much, like for me, there was so much more richness right there. Like I can easily be like, oh yeah, that's a Lynn right there. And like, there's a period. But we kind of expanded the period. So it's dot, 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 dot. Like, I started with the question like, well, what kind of being must Gene have been that he always wanted other people to, like, he was so curious about other people. And I was like, oh, well, of course he must live from this place. When he looks at someone or any living thing, he doesn't just like have some like poster on the wall where it's like, the whole universe is like, no, he's living that, and that curiosity opened all of us up. Like, what is right here?
Yes, yes. I love what you said, Jonathan, about how the period is expanded to the dot, dot, dot. For those of you who might be new and don't know about the dot, 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 that was Jean's way of talking about the implicit, or the more is the dot, dot, dot. And that's a wonderful, succinct way of talking about Jean's philosophy, that it goes from a period to a dot, dot, dot. It's great.
If I could say something, Jonathan, what you said, I value what you said. It just reminds me of my education. I had two. I had state education, but I also went to yeshiva in Hebrew school. And to my surprise, that's what developed my thought of wanting to know about others, about meaning. There's a famous philosopher called Rashi, and it's all about questioning and hearing questions, and that's been the basis of my teaching, and it is the basis of when I was in a class with Gene. He's always opening up the class to getting the students to ask questions, and then in those questions, one finds the meaning. It's extraordinary, and he's very, so clever, so sensitive to that.
Yes, more in
And
the
everyone,
end.
he just valued anybody came across his path, he valued. Yeah. And that's what we have to do within ourselves, is to do our best to value ourselves. It's not easy sometimes.
Right.
In this to finish, I mean, in the little break room, I made the statement that we have to value and nurture our demons. And that's what I feel Gene taught me how to do.
Yes, the one in there is also the demons, right?
Pardon?
The one in there is also
It's in there. Oh yeah, they're there. But if you nurture them, they're able to keep at bay.
I was also thinking about several years ago, I went to a workshop, an international in the Netherlands, and we were talking a little bit about Jean's process model. Not that I understand it all, but at one moment, I really got it in terms of being very present in the now. And I actually felt like I was on a drug. I felt, it scared me a little bit, but I was like, oh my gosh, I felt this high. I was so, nothing else was there except that present moment for me. And I really got what he was saying. And in our breakout group, we were talking so much about things that have been going on in our lives, losses and other things that have happened, but being in the now and the importance of, you know, being with that and not knowing what the next moment is going to bring, and also bringing joy into our lives. I lost my husband several months ago, and someone else in my group had lost their husband. And we were talking about bringing joy in our lives today after
Yeah.
having a lot of grief and a lot of suffering. And, you know, I think that's what Jean would want also.
Absolutely.
In our breakout group, we asked about, you know, how we were, and what also came up is what the focusing gave us is to really go to the felt sense and, you know, have the courage to stay with it and wait and to see what's coming, and to really yeah, have to have that staying power to go there and not go to something more on the surface.
Yes, yes. Such a key thing to be able to go to the felt sense, to ask into the felt sense. Makes all the difference in the world.
And to stay with this murky place, right? This murky, not go to what I already know, but to be with this murky unknown yet. I think this quote also is so opening to the unknown.
Yes.
And to the bigness of what is there, that we, as a being, a one physical being, we can't all comprehend. I mean, we will explode. I would explode if I could take in all that, that is in this moment. But that quote is really inviting me to be with that bigness, that vastness, and the mystery. And, you know, sharing one of the word that came to me at some point is the word respect. Like this feels really like respecting the whole, respecting the what I don't see, what I don't know, what I can't hear, respecting, and what's here too that I can see. This big implicit.
Yes, that's a wonderful closing statement. But I have one more story that I can't keep myself from telling you. I had invited one of my students to a presentation that Jean was giving in a large auditorium with a psychoanalytic conference. And so I asked the student afterwards, what did you think of Gene? And he said, well, I was parking my car and I was going to go into the conference, and I saw this old guy sort of hunched over smoking. And I sort of got into a conversation with him, and he was so interested in me and what I was doing at the conference. And we had this amazing conversation. And it wasn't till afterwards when they introduced Gene that I saw that that was Gene Genlin. I was so surprised that this big thing, this important guy, was this little guy smoking a cigarette in the parking lot. But that was very much Gene. So I wonder if Dorothy has a poem for us to end with.
Sorry. This is a poem by Rumi. How could the soul not take flight when from the glorious presence a soft call flows sweet as honey and whispers, rise up now, come away. How could the fish not jump immediately from dry land into water when the sound of water from the ocean of fresh waves springs to his ear? How could the hawk not fly away, back, back to the wrist of the kind as soon as he hears the drum? The king's baton hits again and again, drumming out the signal of return. How could the Sufi not start to dance, turning on himself like the atom in the sun of eternity, so he can leap free of this dying world? Fly away, bird, to your native home. You have leaped free of the cage. Your wings are flung back in the wind of God. Leave behind the stagnant and marshy waters. Hurry, 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 O bird, to the source of life.